will join us in a little bit. We're live in the Sunbury Motor Studio at the Susquehanna Valley Mall. Brought to you by Budweiser. Good times are waiting. Grab some buds and Gracie's Flowers and gifts. Checking out graciesflowers.com. Give them a call, 374-4923. And going to get right into some MMA action. We got a lot to talk about. We got MMA stuff we're going to start with. We got Little League Baseball we're going to talk about, which I can't wait for tomorrow. PIAA playoffs. Trophy round, talk the Phils again. We'll probably talk about that jerk Sandusky. You know, just tons going on. But we're going to start with MMA. In the house, we got Tony Reid. Had him on before. ReidFightwear.com. Rattling-the-cage.com.
It's a lot of dashes.
Follow him on Twitter.
2 dashes, 3 dashes.
At Reid Rattlecage, and it's Reid, R-E-I-D. But the guest of honor is the Barbarian, Tim Boetsch.
Here I am on the radio.
Appreciate it. Appreciate both you guys coming in. We'll start with Tony, though.
Sure.
We'll throw Tony the wolves.
You're going to throw me a bone here and then
I'm going to throw you a bone.
Spend 95% of the time on Tim.
Give us the latest UFC MMA update. I know one's kind of a change in Tim's schedule for the next UFC fight he's in. But we had a UFC event a couple weeks ago. Any surprises, big things going on there?
Yeah, one thing I want to talk about first of all is there's actually a big event on tonight. And I want to make a plea to everyone listening, whether you're a baseball fan, basketball fan, football fan, sports fan in general. Basically, do yourself a favor, tune in tonight. It's on FX at 9 o'clock. It's going to be an amazing card. There's an amazing main event between Demetrius Johnson and Ian McCall. It's a rematch. The first fight was fantastic, but there's some controversy. Tune into that and just watch it with an open mind, whether you like baseball, basketball, football, whatever sport you're listening to hear tonight. Tune into that, and then after you watch that event, tell me that you're going to go back to watching baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis. It's just, I haven't, so just watch the event tonight. It's going to be awesome. It's on free TV, 9 o'clock, tune in, FX.
Yeah, how huge is that now that the UFC's gone to free TV? I mean, I know the pay-per-views are a big deal and all the huge fights on there, but it's got to help them to the point that it's almost now like they're the Friday night fights or the Saturday night fights that you used to see in boxing back in boxing's heyday.
Absolutely, and that's how they're going to build the brand. That's how boxing was built. It was all on CBS, ABC. It was a network television deal. You saw the big fights that would grow the viewership, the fan following for each individual fighter, and you're seeing that now. The UFC, they started their Ultimate Fighter show on TV, and that kind of grew into recognition of certain fighters and kind of fan following. And now they're showing actual events on TV, and there's the UFC numbered events are the big ones, like 149, 150, and they're showing
149 is going to be huge by the way.
It is, but they're showing some more of those on TV now, and I think it's smart. Like I said, there's always free fights, and whether it's the UFC or Bellator's on Spike a lot, or MTV2 and some other MTV networks. But the Fox family of networks, you're going to see the UFC, you're going to see the top of the line action. There's always fights somewhere now. Like fans of the sport, they've been watching it forever. We watch now, we're like, there's just always a fight on. It used to never be like that. There'd be a fight once a month. It'd be like a pay-per-view, and you'd be dying to see it. Now you see it Sunday, Monday, every day of the week. So it's just awesome to see.
I can tell how excited you are now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a little while ago, you probably were real excited because you got to interview Royce Gracie.
Royce Gracie, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, how was that meeting and getting to interview a legend?
I mean, they throw the word honor around a lot, but it truly was an honor to get a few minutes of his time to sit down with him. Like I talked last time I was here, in the process of writing a book, and he's the Babe Ruth, if you want to talk baseball. He's the Babe Ruth of MMA. He's whether you want to call him Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan. He's that big in mixed martial arts and in jiu-jitsu, and he was the one that won the first few events, and it skyrocketed from there, as you've seen. And he is the guy to talk to when you're talking old school UFC, early days stuff. He's the man. There's no doubt about it.
Was there anything he said that surprised you?
Yeah, that he was a fan of the Diaz's. I mean, I guess not that it really surprised me, but out of all the things he said, that probably surprised me the most.
The Diaz's are what, like the Yankees or something like that?
No, they're the guys that talk a lot, but they scrap a lot.
So they're like the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah,
they perform though.
Absolutely.
So they're the Miami Hurricanes. All right,
they talk and they scrap just as hard, and it just surprised me a little bit that maybe he kind of related to them a little bit.
For us guys that are kind of MMA illiterate. But
I'm trying to equate it to other sports when we come in here, so there's some understanding there. You know what I mean?
So you mentioned UFC 149, July 21st, up in Canada, right, Tim?
Yeah, we're going to Calgary for this one.
Going to Calgary. Changing who your opponent is, though, it's going to be a guy by the name of Hector Lombard, who was the Bellator champion.
Yeah, world champ, and he's riding, I don't know, Tony probably knows the exact number of wins he's got, but he's got over 20 wins in a row or something incredible, and he's got 17 first-round knockouts or something. So people are, they think he's an absolute killer, but he hasn't been tested in the UFC, and he certainly hasn't been tested against me yet. So.
Yeah, and he hasn't been tested since November of 2011.
Yeah.
So when you look as a fighter, when you look at it, I'm interested to know, how do you train, and then do you change your style of training as you get closer to a fight? Like the boxers always say they change their style a little bit. Do you go through the same sort of process?
Yeah, there's certainly different stages of training that you have to go through. You can't train 100% every day throughout the year, otherwise you get beat up too bad and broken down. And certainly when you have an opponent change like this, you have to change your game plan a little bit. I know he's not going to be running from me like Michael Bisping was going to do. In fact, he ran right out of the fight altogether. But it just poses some different aspects of the fight, different style. It's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this on the way over. Obviously, there's nobody that can hang with you in an MMA style, sitting around their house in Central Pennsylvania. All right, you've proven that. When you're learning basketball, I'll equate it to another sport. You can sit here and you can work on the fundamentals. You can dribble the basketball in your driveway. You can shoot 5,000 free throws a day. But the way you get better is by playing against better competition. So as an MMA fighter, how do you get better when the competition's not around?
I go to Washington, out to Seattle.
Okay.
Actually, Kirkland is where I go to train. I train with Matt Hume. And actually, the main event tonight on FX is DJ. DJ's my teammate out there, so my crew is in Florida tonight getting ready for a big fight. So when you're watching that fight tonight, make sure you're rooting for DJ.
You got a fan behind you right there.
I would call him a fan.
Yeah, let's try to ignore him. That's Drew Fatul, by the way, out there.
All right, we'll ignore him. All right, you mentioned style. What do you consider your style?
My style is whatever it takes to win. Typically, I move forward. I put a lot of pressure on my opponent. And even though I've wrestled my entire life, my background is wrestling, I often look to finish the fight with striking and look for that knockout. That's really what gets the fans excited. That's what excites me personally to go in there and do. So that's what I try to do every fight.
Now, if you look at opponents, is there any type of style that when you see an opponent on the schedule and you go, man, that guy's going to be a pain in the butt, just because of the way he...
I think you're talking about Michael Bisping. So the opponent I was supposed to fight, I know he was going to run, and then that just creates a situation where it looks like I'm chasing after him, and it sometimes turns out to look kind of awkward during the fight. So those fights are sort of annoying. But,
so he's like a guy that kind of runs a little bit and just tries to catch you with a, no, I don't want to say a cheap one, but catch you off guard.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah.
he gets on his bike, as they say.
Yeah.
I got it.
So he runs and tries to score points. It doesn't really look to finish the fight. Where now that I've got Hector, here's a guy who's going to come out and try and kill you in the first 30 seconds. So certainly an exciting fight. And a fight I want to be in.
Real exciting fight.
Fans are going to go nuts.
And Tony mentioned Hoist Gracie. Who were the guys when you were starting, to do this? Who were the guys that you looked up to?
Well, like I said, I've been a wrestler my whole life, so my heroes are in wrestling. My heroes are Dan Gable and the Brands brothers. Those guys are just brutal.
You had to mention all of them.
Well, those are the heroes of wrestling, and even today, training mixed martial arts, that's where I look for my inspiration. There's nothing tougher than collegiate wrestling, and those guys are the best at it. So I really look up to them.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw some questions. I have all sorts of goofy questions that pop into my
Shoot
head.
them out there.
So, I was looking at your stats. You've only lost by submission one time. And this is something I've always.
Okay, let's
honestly,
no,
that's a sore subject.
No, I know. I just, this is the question I have. It's not necessarily a personal question.
It may get personal.
When somebody submits, to me it seems like it's one of two things. One, it's either just sheer absolute pain, or is it the all of a sudden realization that, you know what, this guy is going to break my arm in half, or this guy's going to choke me and I'm going to die. So is it pain or is it panic?
For me, there's so much adrenaline pumping in there that you don't really feel pain till later. But for me, I'm smart enough that I know if I let my arm break, I'm not going to be able to train for a certain amount of time. It's going to set me back in my career.
It'd be a safety type thing.
It's safety, but you let him go until you know it's, all right, I got to tap or this is really going to break. And and set me back a while.
Yeah.
So tapping is the last resort.
Yeah, I think it was a few years ago. I remember watching a fight. I think it might have been Hoist Gracie when he was late in his career, and somebody had him in a submission hold, and it was just like he was just so. Was that
Matt Hughes at UFC 60.
It was Matt
yeah.
Hughes and
Yeah.
Hoist Gracie, and he was just so relaxed, and they're like sitting there going, "How is he doing that?" And eventually he got out of it.
He got out of it. I think he probably did break his arm at that point, but he got out of it, and then I think Matt Hughes got him, I would say, like back mount and kind of pounded him out, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you can. I mean, it's got to be a lot of focus, Tim, to just remain that calm.
Yeah, I mean, you can remain calm to a certain point, but on the flip side of the coin, you have Frank Mir and Big Nog that took place not too long ago, and he ended up with a spiral fracture in his upper arm bone that, you know, that's terrible.
Yeah.
You know, so you can be tough and you can be relaxed, but when bones start breaking,
Yeah.
you're going to have problems.
Hey, we're with Tony Reid, ReidFightwear.com, RattlingTheCage.com, and Tim Boetsch, UFC fighter. And Tim, we're going to keep throwing some questions at you here.
Come on.
You know, now that you've kind of made a name for yourself and people might recognize you a little bit, do you ever go out places and somebody says, "Man, I can take him"? Did you ever run into that?
Never.
That's probably good.
I don't know if they just don't recognize me, they don't care. Or,
I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you were walking through the mall here, I wouldn't have recognized you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen your
No,
picture
that's
at
a
the
great
paper
thing
and seen
about
you
this
fight.
area. I can go cut grass and no one bothers me. And it's Boetsch's Lawn Care, by the way. Check me out. No, but I'm pretty mild-mannered, so I don't draw that sort of attention anyway. I don't sit in the bar and let everybody know I'm a professional fighter. I can beat everybody up. That's not my personality or attitude.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of attitude and personality, I'm sure you've come across a lot of guys in the UFC that have, I mean, we've all seen Tito Ortiz and all these guys. Who's a guy who comes across as just an absolute jerk?
This is a loaded question I would ask.
But is actually pretty cool.
I'm going to go with the Diaz brothers. They have a terrible reputation. They come across as cocky, but I can't remember if it was my last fight or 2 fights. Yeah, it wasn't my last fight. I was in Japan. 2 fights ago, we shared a locker room with them, and they're 2 very cool guys. You know, there's nothing wrong with them. So I think a lot of it is performance stuff. You know, there's got to be a bad guy in every sport.
Yeah.
But, you know, Koscheck's another name that comes to mind, but he plays the bad boy role very well.
Yeah. You just kind of seem to me like you kind of just stay the course. It doesn't seem to me like you try and come out as the good guy or the bad guy. You kind of like I'm going to be the hard working guy.
That's me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way you come across in here.
That's good.
And you know, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating to me that you know we have somebody local that is going out and doing big things, and it's great. And one last question I'll throw at you, and obviously you've been around a lot of stuff. We like a little bit of name dropping, okay? So what's like the coolest thing that ever happened to you going out to like the UFC? I mean, it was just like, I mean, as long as it's clean.
One of my favorite things, and I'm actually glad that Drew swung by because that jarred my memory. I remember the first time we ran into Chuck Liddell backstage, and I was pretty impressed with him, but Drew was literally speechless. So seeing the look on his face was, I thought that was pretty cool to see somebody who was actually starstruck. And I don't know who would do that to me. I think maybe if I ran into Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody like that, it would have that effect. But I actually got to see my brother-in-law experience that starstruck moment with Chuck Liddell, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always awesome. I mean, when you get to meet somebody, you consider like a hero or something like that. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable. But guys, I really appreciate you coming in today. Been an absolute blast. Tim, good luck. UFC 149, July 21st versus Hector Lombard. Light heavyweight battle.
Middleweight.
Or middleweight.
You
Middleweight. You dropped down to
Yeah.
middleweight. Okay. Middleweight. Bad notes. Bad notes. Middleweight. So what at middleweight? What do you fight now?
185 is
185
weight class. Yes.
Okay. So, yeah. I mean, you're not. I mean, I don't mean this in a bad way. You're not like a guy that walking down the mall. I'm gonna say, oh man, that guy is. I mean, you're put together.
I appreciate that.
Obviously,
I work out a lot.
Yeah, you're put together. But that's the way you kind of have to be in UFC. You just can't. I mean, I think what's the dude from WWF?
Lesnar?
Lesnar.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of proved that you just don't got to be a musclehead to win at UFC.
And he's actually not that tough when it comes to fighting.
When I talk to him, I'll tell him to say that.
Ken, he'll agree.
That's great. All right, Tony Reid, ReidFightwear.com, Rattling-the-cage.com. What's the magazine you write for?
Tap Out Magazine, MMA Worldwide Magazine. I just started a feature in Ultimate MMA Magazine, so a bunch of magazines.
He's all over the place. You can follow him on Twitter. He's always on Twitter, and he got on Twitter, and he's always on Twitter.
My wife would attest that I am almost addicted.
Don't tweet at the dinner table.
I don't. That hasn't happened yet.
That'll get you put in a submission, by the way.
I'll be tapping.
On Twitter at Reid Rattle Cage, Tim Boetsch, TimBoetsch.com, and at Tim Boetsch on Twitter as well. Really appreciate you guys coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Absolute fun.
Absolutely, anytime.
All right, more to come here on your Valley Sports Theater, 92.3 FM.